So, Fuzzy, let me ask you, how long have you been gaming on PC?
Well, I'm kind of returning to it like this past year, but prior to that, I would say from 97 all the way through probably 2006, I was a hardcore PC gamer. And I think when Windows Vista really took off, I kind of stepped away and went back to console for a bit. But yeah, been doing it for a bit.
Okay. Now, and when you say hardcore, I'm talking about keyboard mouse hardcore, or are you still a controller?
I keyboard and mouse and wheel and separate flight stick with yoke and pedals. Like I had a whole steering wheel rig and everything, because the company I worked for, we had like racing seats. And they also do racing seats for not just for real race cars, but also for gaming simulators and stuff. So I was able to get the mount for that for free. And then I just built the base for like the wheel and pedals and had the seat that I already had through my employer and stuff. But
that is
cool, the thing that switched me over was seeing on PlayStation 1, I guess it was, NASCAR racing. And it was cool. And then my brother went and got his new Dell, and he spent like probably $2,500 back then. And I saw what it looked like on that versus on the PlayStation. I was like, I want that. And it was off to the races after that. And Flight Sim, a lot of the I think it was Jane's World or Jane's, like the Flight Sim dogfighting games for like the F-15, the F-14 Tomcat, the F-16s, all of those were big back then for me on PC. And then with me going into being in the military at the time, America's Army and what do you call it? There was another, it wasn't ARMA back then, but it was like America's Army, which was like the official, basic training tool. And there was like another military simulator back then that I was like, oh yeah, I can do this. And Windows Vista kind of ruined it for me because I was being hard-headed.
Is what got you into
oh yeah, simulators. That was the big thing because consoles just couldn't do that. They could, but they didn't look the same.
True. Okay. Because I've heard you talk PC. A lot of people go, "Oh yeah, I play a little bit on PC," but then I hear you speak, and I'm like, he doesn't just play on PC. The man knows his stuff. So I gotta know where you get that history from. That's cool, bro. That's cool. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to what we affectionately call the Gamers Playground. Now, under normal circumstances, I would say this is the show that attempts to demystify the monolith known as PCMR, but I want to change that because the MR part has bad connotations. You know what I'm talking about. It's just not necessarily the best thing. And of course, now with more games coming out on all these various platforms and PC showing itself to be one of the places where you get a lot more options and whatnot, a lot of people are trying to jump in. So instead of the PCMR, I'm trying hashtag get a PC. This is the place where you can come and understand what I mean when I say hashtag get a PC. I am your host, Mr. K. Asante, TK Asante, on all the places we communicate. And yes, I am not with the Latino heat because family happens, man. Sometimes, some things happen. Salute to him. We'll see him next week. Hope all is well. But I'm joined by the one and only, and as you heard a few minutes ago, a technologist in his own right, Mr. Fuzzy Belvedere. Good evening, sir. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Just always watching you guys' show before I head on to FSP later on in the night. But
indeed. Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, this technology talk, I'm all for it. Like I'm kind of ready for next gen, like yesterday, kind of thing. So
absolutely, and it's wonderful you bring that up because we're gonna talk about next gen. But before we do, sir, I have to ask you, what games are keeping you busy this week, sir?
Still Dragon's Dogma 2. Playing a bit of that. I'm at a point where I need to start doing more of the mainline story because there are certain areas I just can't get through too easily. But outside of that, I've been doing Undisputed, which it's still early access.
Oh yeah, you still playing game. Undisputed? Yeah.
Great. On a career, had to cut it off a couple of times. So I'm like 15-0, and I'm getting my butt handed to me on the 16th fight. So. Not quite ready to take a loss just yet on the career mode, but
okay.
Other than that, with a lot of the Hellblade talk, I hopped back into Hellblade, which the one play anywhere type of title, or what I thought would be play anywhere, is not play anywhere because my Xbox console save didn't carry over to PC. So I'm like halfway for like the third time on PC. I only made it in like 60% in on console, and then on PlayStation when it first came out, I'm about 80 or 90% through. Mm-hmm. So I always wanted to get the achievement on Xbox, and I care less about platinum trophies on PlayStation. But getting back into that because I'm excited for this game coming next month. And then my usual, I was about to say usual subjects, but it's like GT7, Forza Horizon 5. Forza has like a big community thing they're doing right now. So if you haven't been in it in a while, hop back in, help the community get a new Mustang. If you do track races, and then do the dirt track races for like the new F-150. So everybody do their part.
Do your part in helping us get all of us get a Mustang. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, so I had to ask you because I know you about that technology. I know you're always I hear you talking technology, and we're all console gamers as well, right? Mm-hmm. But by and large, you find that depending on where the game lives or certain situations, you'll gravitate towards more than the other, right? And that brings about lots of choice, and that brings about lots of preference and all that. But obviously, not to be outdone, some of us may not have said choice because you choose your platform of choice either by choice or by necessity, financial or otherwise, and then you pick to it. So it's brought about a lot of interesting conversation that I think we should have this week. First and foremost, let me say salute to all the fine folks that are in the chat this evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. I see a bunch of great names already. Yes, Flood, Wu-Tang is for the children, but this is not Wu-Tang. This is Wakanda. I'm sorry. This is not Wu-Tang. I know what he was talking about. Salute. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you, brother. And all the great folks in the chat already. Thank you so much for being here and come hanging out with us. So I have been playing, like you, Dragon's Dogma 2, right? I'll tell you, that game kicked my butt, man. Like it kicks your butt. Like it really does. It needs you to learn its systems, but it doesn't want to teach you its systems. It wants you to figure it out, and that's cool. It is cool. I think it's cool, but it's a game of a sometimes it harkens back to a previous generation, back when you didn't have instruction manuals and you had to literally figure it out, and you're playing the same game for like 5-6 months because the game your dad bought you or your mom bought you, you know what I mean? Like I feel a little bit of that energy here, but I am having fun with it. It's cool. On that topic, what's your rig? What kind of PC you play? Are you playing on PC or console?
Right now I'm playing it on PC. Because I figured I'd have the best experience at that point. 3080.
How's that going for you?
It's My PC, I tried to make it as bulletproof when I built it like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, back when it was still partially pandemic and video card prices were through the roof still. I
Yeah.
went and got a 3080 that's a slight overclock, tweaked it a little bit in the afterburner settings. I got a Ryzen 7, not the latest gen, the gen before, like the last one that could be on a
Okay.
B550 board. I got 32 gigs of RAM. I made sure I did the whole timing thing and studied what I needed to do to get all that set. And then I just have the 1 terabyte internal M2 SSD, and I got a couple of externals, but I'm looking to do another internal because I got another slot on the motherboard. This time, I think I'm going to go with a 2 terabyte to go along with it. But overall, like when I turn everything up, it says my memory is in the orange because it's only like a 10 gig card.
But only 10 gigs of VRAM. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but they say it's gonna, induce bugs. I haven't noticed any. Like the only thing that's weird, and I probably need to tweak the settings, is that certain times in the grass, that bloom effect that they have, or maybe it's the depth perception thing. I forget what they call it, but it's like it has like this weird shadowy effect sometimes through the grass. But I think that's more so one of the other settings that I have turned up. I turned blur completely off, but there's like the depth or something. I need to, tweak that a bit so that way the grass looks, perfect, not just right in front of me, but the field way ahead. And that I think that's like the only thing that sometimes during the day can get a little wonky.
Yeah, I've had some odd issues, but more with frame generation. Like when I turn frame generation on and I'm playing it, you can feel a little bit of that stuttery, it's a little, and I got a pretty decent system myself, but still it seems like it doesn't matter how decent your system is or isn't, depending on where you're planning on playing this thing, you'll eventually hit that snag, especially if you're in the city. Like I noticed that whenever I'm in the city, prepare for buckling. You're going to buckle. It doesn't matter what kind of system you have. It seems like it's kind of very performant. It gets the job done, but you got to be okay with taking a little bit of a hit here and there, But
and I think it has something else in the background on top of the people, the NPCs. I didn't realize, much like a Bethesda RPG, it has persistence with the stuff you drop. Like until I realized that the rotten food was good for like the lantern oil, I was dropping like, oh, I didn't eat this in time, so let me drop these apples, let me drop the steak here. And it's like near a campsite, like all these campsites, I see all the drop food that I dropped off before. And now it's like, oh, well, I could pick this up and turn it into lantern oil or something. But I didn't realize it had that type of stuff. And knowing that it's all these things I've spewed throughout the map, it's like, that probably isn't helping my situation either. But
I heard that Capcom was advising people to kill NPCs if they want the game to run better.
I heard that
hilarious,
too.
Right? Hilarious.
Yeah, but then you wind up killing one of them that's like the person you need to make trade with or a storyline. Then you got to revive them, and you only get like a handful of those stones. So,
right? I bet we are soon. There's a mod on its way that, if not already here, that finds all the non-important characters and snuffs them out just to keep the game performant. Like, absolutely ridiculous, But no, it's cool. I have been enjoying myself, and it's been really speaking to this next gen like conversation that we've all been having. But let's table the next gen gaming talk for a bit, because you're here and you're a technologist like myself. You enjoy the speeds and feeds and the newest, latest, best. So I wanted to for a moment talk to you about this story that I found, right? Which shout out to Jez Corden. I think he tweeted it out, and I got a chance to check this out. I don't know if you've seen this. Apple inventing Xbox Connect. I thought this was hilarious.
Apple's always been known for like they'll say inventing, but it's like reinventing or reintroducing something that others have already done. It's just that they make a big to do about it, or sometimes they do it better, and people give them credit as opposed to the originators. But so like if for those that aren't aware,
if you read this, the broad strokes of the article, Apple is most likely putting the FaceTime cameras on the set-top box that is the Apple TV, and the idea being just like your phone sees you and enables and turns on and is able to do that, you could potentially do the same thing a la Connect. It sees your face, you're in there, and you're running, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the thing that I thought was pretty funny about this article is although they talked a lot about what it can do, what it can do, and how it'd be amazing and all of this stuff, they didn't point out that this FaceTime technology actually originated from the Kinect. It's the same team that built that big Kinect for Microsoft, eventually shrunk it down, license agreement, and put here. So how can they be building? It's like what do they call it? Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. Like,
yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, people clown the Kinect a lot, but a lot of the stuff you own has a lot of roots in those quote unquote failed projects. You know what I mean? But I just thought it was pretty hilarious. What do you think of a world where you walk in the room and your Kinect enabled Apple TV sees you? And like you said, it's more of a game console than you think, right? Like maybe they pair, or maybe they make a deal with another company, or I don't know, like 8BitDo or something, and create a really awesome controller. Like they could become undeniable overnight. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, they have, like, I think on the most recent ones, there is some movement recognition as far as in the remote control itself. It's nowhere near as good as what the Kinect was like as far as visual, or even the Wii U units and stuff, or the Wii unit or nunchuck or whatever. Yeah. But for the most part, that would be something that would kind of catapult them into being more of a console space spotlight than what I guess they're choosing to avoid at the moment. But if Microsoft keeps knocking at the door on stores on mobile and things with AI, I could totally see Apple being like, you know what, we want to be a console now too. But it would be kind of cool. The one thing I can totally see Apple integrating would be approving purchases. Oh, you want to buy that app? Just look into the camera type of thing. And it's like, I could see them doing that as well.
Accidental purchase by looking at you.
But I think that would be a cool move. Moving forward, if they started enabling some of the games, like I see they have that Vision Pro. That's out of my budget range, but when they finally make the Apple Vision, probably like the second gen or third generation of that, and having something like this with a built-in camera or having like a Kinect-like ability to it, I think those combinations will have it where we're on like the holodeck of the Enterprise or something like that at that point.
You actually tried the Vision Pro?
No, I'm see, the problem is I know if I try it, I'm going to want it. And then I'm going to, after telling my wife, I don't think I'm going to FanFest, and then spend like $3,500 on that. But like, that could have been the plane tickets in the hotel and whatnot.
True.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. not right now anyway.
So I did the opposite. I knew that if I tried it, then I wouldn't want it. But if I didn't try it, my brain would formulate its excellence, right, and not seeing its faults, and then I'd go hit the buy button. So what did I do? I went to the store. I went to the Apple store, like you can, by the way, because on the Gamers Playground, we like to give you tips. You can pick up a phone right now, or go on a website, go to your closest Apple store, set an appointment, and for free, somebody will sit you down, talk you through it. Well, you do this, you do that. They'll show you a whole 30-minute, 45-minute spiel with the headset on, let you dial it in, the whole thing. And honestly, after my experience with it, I realized this guy is king. Like, really, it is. As soon as I was done, and actually the Apple guy asked me, and he was a very, very normal, like straight-laced guy, kind of guy. He wasn't peddling the company line or anything. He's just about the tech, you could tell. And he's like, so what do you think? And I'm like, well, my first thought is it's going to sell a lot of Meta Quest 3s. He goes, you're not wrong. Right? Yeah, like you could definitely tell at that moment that as cool as this device was, and it's really, really, like, really cool, it's not ready for the end user. It's not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
The price, the performance, the weird goofy battery that's hanging off of it. You can't like, it's one thing if it's just a weird battery that's just hanging off and you can replace it with other batteries because they're opening a new market, right? You can't disconnect the battery. It's stuck there. It'll always be there. You cannot remove it, right? The whole thing was odd to me. And as soon as it was done, what happened? Meta started updating. Another update, and it's getting better and better. That's why I'm like, it will sell a lot of Meta Quests, right? But I do agree with you that given to the next vision, the third iteration, right? They bring the price down from $3,000 to $1,500, which is still expensive. Let's not get it twisted. But that will be more in the price range of people trying to get their hands on it, and by then it'll be really worked out and really interesting, So yes, I went and I checked it out. And because of that, I didn't buy it. Because had I not checked it out, I probably would have hit the buy button. I probably would have. So yeah, this article, the line that really like got me laughing was the line that I highlighted there. FaceTime on Apple is a game-changing feature that looks like it'll be expanding upon the future. It's a shame that those in the Microsoft ecosystem won't have a similar option.
Yeah.
I'm laughing hysterically because it was called Connect. And what did people do? They shunned that thing like it was the plague. And now all of a sudden, ooh, the future's here. Okay. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I loved my Connect. I thought it was great. The visuals weren't that great. The hand-to-eye tracking and all that wasn't that great. But the voice dictation was second level. Like you could just go anywhere you want, say something. Even in game, it was really, really functional and cool. But hey, we shall see. I kind of think this is secretly Apple creeping their way into consoledom. Every once in a while, they like to say, "Hey, we got this console thing here," and those who have the Apple Arcade quietly know that it's actually pretty damn good. All the ads are gone and everything's all clean and pristine and whatnot. So those that I look forward to seeing Apple potentially jump into these waters in a proper way. Yeah. Let us move on, because again, you are the technologist in the room today, and I appreciate the fact that you're here. So I pulled out a few tech topics that I wanted to talk about, namely this one, which will thread into the next gen conversation that I want to have, because I believe, mark it here first, I believe this all connects, baby. It's all connected.
Oh yeah.
This is the next future of Microsoft. This is AI. This is gaming. This is the handheld. It's all one interesting little nugget that's been being put together here. What are your thoughts on Microsoft's idea that they are now confident that they can beat Apple to the x86 on ARM punch?
Well, I think it's definitely taken them time, and I think that's probably the big reason why. And working with Qualcomm and seeing how they've progressed with their custom made chips, essentially, I think they wanted to make sure all of the I's were dotted and T's were crossed, kind of thing, to make sure that at that point when they do go all in to support it, that it's going to meet their requirements. It's going to meet what they want as far as like power output, and all of those other various things. So at first I was a little hesitant to endorse this ARM move, because in the console space, like I would have hoped that they would have already had like their ARM based Surface Pros or Surface Books out there on the market for a couple of years, and then we see that come to the console. But I think because they're doing the approach where it's going to be a mixture of AI and that, I think the AI part will probably handhold new users to it, so they'll become more accustomed to it. And then on the ARM aspect, I think for those that are going to want like to run Adobe based software and things like that, they're going to really help push that, where I guess they have something better than what Apple's using for like the translation layer type of thing.
Yes.
That's going to be the big push, because everything made prior to ARM is going to have to need some sort of like emulation, I guess, or some sort of translation for it. So I think now if they have like the back end stuff kind of figured out, and they can kind of dial in exactly the specs for that chip, it's like a perfect marriage at that point. I mean, sure, Apple has like a 3 generation jump kind of thing to some extent, but if
Which is
Microsoft has
rare,
been,
right? Isn't that
yeah,
rare? Usually they're the last one to the jump, and they go, "Look what we've invented."
true. But I think this time Microsoft took a page from their book and kind of stepped back, looked at it,
Mhm.
iterated in the
Yeah, a
background,
little bit. Yeah,
worked
yeah,
with the
yeah.
hardware, and didn't bring it to market. Let's say for the most part to kind of see a few different things and then compare it to what, since they already have partnerships with AMD and they already have partnerships with Intel, they kind of know where these things are going to kind of fall in line as far as power wise and things like that. So I think at this point they're kind of like, well, we already have those partnerships and we're not going to move completely away from those. We're still going to keep those. But if we're going to, be able to iterate on some of our stuff to have a little bit of an edge, maybe on the AI side of things or, resource management side of things for that hardware, this would be the time where I think they kind of got all of that stuff kind of figured out. So
Mhm.
I'm excited to see
Yeah,
what that looks like here with their next Surface line, because I guess that's what we're going to see later this year, and then they'll
yeah,
probably hit the
yeah.
market September or something like that, just in
Mhm.
time for back to school.
Indeed, indeed. So it looks like this is the first time they're pushing ARM-based devices in a big way. They pushed it a little bit in the Surface line sometime back with the Windows 11 X build of a Surface, and
Yeah.
it was a cool looking device, cool thin looking device. It's just at the time that translation layer was just not it. It wasn't doing it well. They were talking about they did have some interesting things with like general workloads, but the minute you need anything performant, it just goes downhill. So I'm excited to see what this is about because they're like name dropping, right? They are actually name dropping. So and I mean it is internal, but still, usually, and I think I've said this on a show before too. Usually, you go, we're faster than the leading name brand. No,
Mhm.
they're faster than Rosetta 2. We coming for you, son. Like
Yeah.
they're saying it right there. They're using their chest with it. So
Yeah.
it's exciting to me to see if they're actually really going to hit this mark. Because let's be honest, Apple has basically like eaten all the food in that space. It'll take a very performant box, a very very good chip to even like have people look elsewhere. And of
Mhm.
course, Apple's always had their cachet. Microsoft has always been the spreadsheet device maker, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it'll take a lot to move the needle, but the fact that they're talking this way really, really excites. I tend to balk a little when they speak on Qualcomm because Qualcomm has always been a follower and not a leader in that way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They're always just kind of they won by default.
Yeah.
They kind of won by not because they were the greatest, but it was because they basically had the only reference design like that you could buy for a long time, right?
Mhm.
So much so that in America, like you'll see Samsung use Qualcomm chips, but their own Exynos chips outperforms Qualcomm. They'll just leave it outside America, which I'm just like, come on now, you know what I mean? Give us some performance, give us some competition, but hey. If Microsoft is backing them in this way, I'm hoping that means something else is going on here. And
Yeah.
the reason why I say this dovetails into gaming is because, as you know, Sarah Bond has talked about coming up with that team or solidifying that team for the 6 months now that they have that is talking about backward and forward compatibility. Now,
Mhm.
before I start losing my technical mind, what did that mean to you when you heard?
Well, with all of the talk of ARM, I kind of suspected that there's going to need to be some sort of like team to help continue whatever we have in our current libraries being on like the x86 type of format now
Mhm.
and moving that forward. So I assumed that they were going to have some sort of, whether it be emulation stuff that they have to work on ahead of time for the next console, and thinking the next console initially was going to be more PC based, like the whole thing with the handheld. Like my ideal vision of that would be it's going to be more potent than a Steam Deck 2, basically like a Series S, but like in the next iterations level or the next generation level of a Series S, but portable with better power management, and then have it where it can play PC games to a very reasonable spec, probably a bit easier than what we see currently with the Steam Deck and its compatibility on a lot of PC games. and then have it where you could still take your existing library of Xbox One, Xbox 360, well, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and then the series console games, any of those purchases with you forward. The only kind of like question mark was that the whole third party license deal. But I think if they do it as an emulation, that it's not that it gets around the licensing, but it makes it where you're still getting, or you're still only using that license that you've paid for or authorized to use with the console games. But now moving forward, we're going to be more PC like, and it opens up the doors to a whole series of games that wouldn't normally come to console for, years at a time. So that whole compatibility team, I think they're going to be the key to kind of not necessarily move everybody forward to PC, but at least this next generation of console that's probably more PC than ever before. It's going to move all of your back stuff that was, console only, and move it forward so that way it's playable along with all the new stuff without you even noticing it or skipping a beat type of thing.
Yeah. I see Sin has a question. Salute to you for being here. Thank you so much. He asks, as promising as you guys make it sound, the same thing was mentioned about the Xbox One X. Phil claimed forward compatibility with it. Do we feel that the One X ended up being forward compatible? Do you want to take that, or should I?
I would say, at least for the series consoles, I feel that they were forward compatible as far as with the One X and everything. The only thing that was kind of like a weird deal was if you owned an Xbox One X and then you bought a Series S, you weren't necessarily getting a one-to-one on the graphical level, as far as, even though it's a different measure and everything, but you weren't getting like the 4K resolution stuff or the 4K textures. So aside from the textures aspect, everything I would say moved seamlessly. Like, I think there was maybe one or two games that were somewhat problematic, which were either eventually fixed or something along those lines. Like, I think there was a Devil May Cry before they did the new edition or the latest edition, but I think that was more so on their programming side. And then there was like another title that from jump where the series console, it wasn't compatible from the Xbox One. But once again, I think that was more on the dev side than the hardware or something to that effect. So
yeah. See, and I think technically, if you think about it, and he's talking about the One X, that's technically he was correct, right?
Okay.
Because it was backward compatible, meaning all your old games played, right? And games that came out on the One X in the One X generation play now on the series console. So it was forward compatible as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like the problem is, at least as I see it, because they can't get into the technical minutia of it, they have to use buzzwords that then become like weird nooses around their necks later. You know what I mean? Oh, forward compatible, back compatible, right? They are basically disassociating that hypervisor from the hardware. And if you do that, wherever the hypervisor lives, so does the game. It's that simple, right? And it could be a PC into the future flung, as long as you have this. Because, and here's a quick example, right? I used to, back in the day, I used to love playing with Mac OS, right? On OS 10 on my Windows machine, right? If you pick the right kind of device parts, Gigabit was notorious for it. Intel, you could build what is called a Hackintosh. In a former life, I was a musician, and I used eMagic, which ended up being Logic, right? eMagic owned it in Windows land until Apple went, nope, you're mine, and they took Logic and they made it a Mac only tool. And at the time, my workflow was really into eMagic, so I built Hackintoshes, ran Mac OS 10 on the Windows x86 standard device, right? At some point, it was just not even worth my time to do that anymore. So we had virtual machines, a VM player, and inside the VM player, you hit the button, you turn on the app, and inside that app was OS 10. Right? Inside that thing, it thinks it's OS 10. It does all the OS 10 stuff. And then I click it away and I'm still in Windows. I always was in Windows. It just shares resources with the guest as well as the host, right? I still have it somewhere on my machine. I could always just double click it and there it is again, Windows 10. Mac OS 10, and you can do that with any operating system, right? You can do exactly that with Linux. You can do exactly that. It just depends on how you configure it. So it's exactly the same paradigm. It's just connected to a console and it's set to auto launch every time you start it up, right? So the idea of back and forward compatibility, that's a no-brainer to me, right? That's why when I heard she's working on a team and I'm like, oh boy, we have our forward compatibility and our back compat, which means, you know, the future is in front of us, right? That stuff excites me. And I suspect that solves the problem for all those people who are like, hey man, what happens if our consoles go away? So what? It's a means to an end. And now you don't need that anymore. You know, your library still follows, you know? I thought that was super exciting. So as the only part, and I want your opinion on this one, and then we'll move forward. The only part where I'm just kind of like, I'm just gonna sit there and wait and see and have a little bit of a side eye is exactly the blurb that everybody has been latching on to as far as what Sarah Bond said, right? She reiterating that this will be the biggest technological leap in a generation, right? I don't doubt what she's saying is not true. I'm not saying that she's lying, not at all. But she said technological leap. She didn't say performance leap.
True.
And everybody wants performance, but she said technological. And I think people are thinking performance when they hear technological. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, right, the aforementioned Kinect, that big honking thing, when it turned into this, that was a huge technological leap.
Yeah.
Right? Had nothing to do with performance. It may still take a while for it to see you and unlock, but it went from this big old thing to this teeny tiny thing right here. That is a technological leap.
Yeah.
Be cautious there, humans. Might be up for the okie doke is what I'm saying. You know?
Yeah.
So yes, what are your thoughts on that? Is it really? Do you expect it to be like, oh my God, we're seeing the next gen? It's going to be massive, or am I hedging people's bets correctly? You think?
I think it might be a little bit of column A, column B kind of thing, where I do think we do get a little bit of a performance bump. I don't know if they're going to go full on like 24, gigs of RAM or anything along those lines. I know a lot of the devs would like that extra, memory bank type of thing, but I do think like neural processors, I think, are here to stay. Something that's going to be AI based, and I have a feel that AI, as far as like an NPU of the future, is going to be a little bit of a graphical workhorse to some extent, almost like a built-in DLSS kind of hardware piece on one aspect of it. And then on the other end aspect of it, I think some of the workload that would normally fall on the CPU, as far as, a massive amount of NPCs and maybe some of their tasks or some of that workload stuff, I think will be offloaded onto that. So I think having that extra brain in the console, I think, is going to be that technological leap that she's referring to. But I think they're also going to add some more memory to it. I'm hoping we go and get more space at these for this next gen, like 2 terabyte. Although I know that costs more, but it would be nice to move past the 1 terabyte number and completely forget about the 512. But I do think we see a performance bump, but NPUs, I think that's going to be the thing that hopefully gets more utilized in the cloud and some of the other things that they've added into the console as far as hardware. Like I know there's some hardware stuff for ray tracing built in for the Series X and S that isn't being quite utilized by a lot of the devs, or at least third party at this point. And we know some of the first party are working on stuff, but I hope that that's something that all devs can see. Hey, I don't have to worry about, the optimization taking a pitfall because I have 300 NPCs on screen. I can have this other unit offload a lot of those tasks, and everything is still running.
I'll recommend that people go kill them to make their game more performant. I'm sorry.
Hopefully they don't have to do that, but like I could totally see Rockstar with the way Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be. like we already saw the density of the crowds, and that's running on console because it's not going to be on PC for probably at least a year. So they got to figure out a way to get that much, NPC density and have it meaningful, and not just have a whole bunch of people bumping into each other on the street kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Ha! Shout out to the man, John Wolf. Salute to you, sir, with a $5 super chat. He says, shout out to the chat, my co-host K Asante, and thank you, Fuzzy, for guesting today. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you, man. I hope all is well. He had to do some family things. Family comes first. We appreciate that. So thank you, Fuzzy, once again for pinching in and doing some tech talk with me. I always appreciate that. Now, about this whole idea of them bringing together the console and the PC and this and that, I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, what will that mean for console people? What will that mean for PC people? The PC people have their needs that they need met. I need to be able to go back in the back end, and as as Lucius Augustus in the chat says, oh, I like to tweak and twerk. No twerking, sir. Just tweaking. No twerking. Calm down. All right. No Diddy. But for those people, you want to be able to have two options, right? You want to be able to have the option of you can do this or you can do that, whatever your choice may be, right? And I actually have to tell you, whenever I start looking at these environments or looking at these ideas, I think, hey, has this been done somewhere before? Is there some place you can kind of look to get an idea or a sense of how it could potentially work? And I found something that exists already that people could just do at this point, and that is GeForce Now. I don't know if a lot of people have seen this yet, and I'm going to show it off. But first, Jax82, the great Jax82, supporter of this channel. I appreciate you, sir. With a $2 super chat, he says, I think I'm signing up for your PC class, KSI. Now, the man has been reluctant PC person. He's been standing on his square in his disappointment. I know because I've been hearing him talk in the chat, and I'll see them on some other shows talking. But sir, we are all welcoming you here, man. You are welcome here. We will talk about it. I was actually talking to the one Everborn Saga a few minutes ago before the show started, and he was looking at a PC, looking at something for his living room. So, the world is opening up for everybody, But I appreciate you being here, Jax. Thank you so much. What I think is interesting is everybody's asking how they're going to thread that needle. Oh, the console player versus the PC player. This is not exactly the same, but it kind of gives you a sense of what might be possible. So for those who aren't aware, this is the GeForce Now interface. This is the PC interface. You can get something similar on your tablet, get something similar on your, all the various devices where you can find this very easily done. Even in a browser, you can do it, right? And you've heard this thing can stream any of these games for you, all that, right? But the interesting thing is you go under menus and you go under settings, and what they do is there is a setting right here. Where's that setting? There's resolution scale. This is the one right here. So, you can't see that, can you?
No.
I went under settings and you can't see that. Wow, that's interesting. Ooh, okay. Hold on. Let me remove it. I'll remove it. Stop sharing, and then I'll present again and see if I start sharing from this screen, if it will show you the screen or not. Let's see here. Will you see it now? Yes, you can. Okay, interesting. Okay. So when you're in one screen, it won't show the other. That's very odd. Here's the background. Right here, there's a setting that says turn on, right? Turn on to save settings for in-game setting, for your in-game settings, right? Because it's a PC game, right? If you turn it off, NVIDIA recommends graphic settings are used. This will take effect the next time you launch a game. AKA, you want to be a console guy, you hit this button. You get no settings, you get no tweaking and twerking. All it is what NVIDIA recommends is the ideal, right? And then it just runs, just like a console. But if you're like a person who wants to tweak certain settings, you hit the button, and then you go in and it allows you to do that. That is a way forward, right? Yeah. That way you can be your console gamer, get your profile solid, not a problem, right? Or you could be one of those people who likes to twerk, like Lucius in the chat, and then you turn the setting on, and what are you doing? You're actually playing your game. You're going to the background. You're making modifications, right? It's an interesting idea, and it exists already.
Yeah.
What do you think, sir?
I think that's definitely a good way moving forward, as far as like, because there's going to be a lot of people that just want to take it out of the box, hit
Hmm.
play on the game, and just that's it. They don't want to have to worry about, oh, should I adjust the resolution to get better frames? Should I adjust the shadows to get better, texture quality? No, if they want to play the game, whether it be on the go or just like in front of the TV, that would be probably the best way, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are like they picked up the Steam Deck or a ROG Ally or whatever recent PC handheld, and the guys that are more console centric that were willing to step their toe into this and try it, they're like, well, the Steam Deck, it's all right, but then when I run into this game, I run into this problem. Or ROG Ally, it's great, but then I can't adjust things so the battery doesn't die fast, type of thing. So for those guys, having something that's right out of the box that they don't have to worry about it, and it's like for the best experience on that hardware, that would be awesome for those guys. And then for us that are like, you know what, I don't care about the ray tracing, let me turn that off, let me turn up the particle effect detail, or this thing is at 1080, I could probably do with just 800p type of thing, just because the screen is technically at that. And maybe I can get a little bit extra battery life by turning this setting down. Instead of getting just 3 hours, possibly maybe you can get 4.5 to 5 hours. Yeah, that would, I think, would be the best way going forward. If Xbox can figure out how to make that happen for their future hardware, I think that will be the way that you don't alienate the console player, and you still have the options that the PC guy can do without having to, jailbreak it or something to that effect, type of deal.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I completely agree. And I love the fact that none of these things are so highbrow that they're inventing things. These are just ideas that are out there that you bring together. And shout out to IGN. You're looking on the screen right now. You're looking at Hellblade 2 footage that they put together, that they were able to get the preview on, and I was blown away at the footage. So I wanted to put this up, and we can have our next gen talk here. I think that world exists for us. I do. I think that world exists for us, and I think it's closer than some may think it may be. I think we see this world soon enough, but to a lesser extent on the console, on the PC side. But on the console side, I feel like I've been hearing a lot of disappointed talk from people, expecting more from the consoles. Right? Yeah. Why is it 30 frames per second? Right? First off, let's establish the ground. It's standard. I believe it's a standard. And if you look, and shout out to Lucius, he's been very much banging this drum. If you look at a lot of the games they've released from all the way 2019 till now, maybe 2 or 3 are not 30 frames per second from jump. All of them are. And to me, 80-20 is a standard, right? So I understand that some people may get a little upset, and I get that, right? Because there was some marketing at play and all of that. But from what I can tell, right, 80-20 is a standard. And I feel like we want to push that envelope. We want that next gen, right? Some people accuse this game of being reductively accuse it of being a walking sim, right? I'll tell you, by the way, you can call it a walking sim all day. Play Hellblade 1 in VR. It will cure you of any kind of notion that it's a walking sim. That thing is horrifying, right? But it's also very beautiful, what you see on the screen, right? It looks like you're basically controlling a movie that you're controlling, right? Mm-hmm. Me personally, I feel like these guys have to walk like this before they can run and eventually get Dragon's Dogma 2 level systems in a visual game like this, right? Yeah. Both can't happen today, but maybe in the future, this is a possibility. What are your thoughts on the idea that it seems that console players are sacrificing 60 frames? I'll put that in quotation. Sacrificing 60 frames, because you play on console as well, as do I.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think of the idea that consoles sacrifice that fidelity, that full motion for convenience and optimization and all that? What are your thoughts?
I mean, To some extent, yes, but like I think the big thing nowadays is that unfortunately there's this target of 4K native or as close to 4K native as possible, and I think that might be part of the foundation problem where because it's on the box that both of these consoles have come in. In fact, on one of them it says 8K. Well, but that's a whole nother conversation. But because 4K seems to be that visual target, and it seems like a lot of the studios wanted to stay within that realm, the amount of resources you need to have something as close to 4K native and look great without having to, bog it down with like a lot of other, anti-aliasing and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be a resource hog. Now, I've always wanted kind of like that 1440 where if it is upscaled a bit, it doesn't really take away. I mean, unless you're sitting like 6 inches from the screen, like if you have a 4K OLED and you're sitting 6 inches from it, you're probably doing more damage to your eyes by that alone than anything. But I would say if the target was more so 1440, turn all the bells and whistles up, but have like a baseline to either shoot for 60. And if 60 can't be obtained at that or at the 1080 mark, then shoot for like that, like where some games are now coming in at 40 or 45, where depending on the TV you have, VRR kind of helps smooth that out, where it, like that's like the next closest acceptable thing to 60 would be that 40 to 45 window. But it always, well, it never seems to fail when new hardware comes out. If the games were still made like they were last gen and the ceiling for visuals was that same ceiling, mm-hmm. I think we would see a lot more 60 frame games. But because these devs are artists in their profession, they're going to now push the limits or turn everything up to the nines that they can. Yeah. Like they're less concerned about the 60 frames, or at least some devs. There are some devs that, like, I expect Coalition is going to have a 60 frames mode. They'll probably be one of the few that'll have a what I would say is a functional multiplayer at 60, mm-hmm. and they will possibly do like a 30 frames 4K and then a 60 frames probably dynamic resolution or something along those lines for the campaign. But most others are going to say, you know what, we want this thing to look like a movie or to be eye-watering when you see it. So we're going to turn up the visuals on the NPCs and the textures of the clothing that they're wearing and the textures on the ground and the specular lights coming through like the leaves of the trees. So they are so focused on all of those other things that eats up any resource or any of the overhead that they would have had for the 60 frames to even be possible. So it's like, even if we get like even more powerful, like twice as powerful hardware next generation, they'll still dial that up even more. It's like now, like the sports games it'll be hard for you to tell at a glance that it was, whether it was a broadcast or the actual game. Yeah. If the hardware is
Imagine
up there,
this Senua tech and it's on a basketball court and there's bright lights and it's like there's no dead eye there, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Stella Yams. I was playing that over the weekend, right? I was playing the demo over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Beautiful game. Exudes all the assets. Ridiculous. But you put the camera on the face of the character and she's just dead-eyed, not real, right? Yeah. That's not happening here. Imagine this, but with normal environments. Mind-blowing. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. I will ask you, have you heard of this story? They've kind of reiterated it a few times where Microsoft is testing, basically releasing what do you call them? Very low texture quality assets, like really low texture quality assets, and they've trained NPUs so well that they're able to upscale to 4K in a ridiculously quick and performant fashion that you can't tell the difference between real 4K assets and the low res one. So they can literally ship all their stuff with super low textures, and then depending on the hardware it detects you're running, it scales it to that screen, right? Yeah. All that amazing tech. What do you think?
I've heard of that, and see, here's where I'm going to go into speculation town for a little bit.
Please, yeah.
The thing I kind of figure after this next generation, whether it's a handheld and a tabletop console, or just a handheld or just the tabletop, whatever the case may be, I think the generation after that is just the controller. And I think at that point they'll have the tech down to a small enough size where the controller will just need an MPU, and that tech that you're talking about, where it can do the upscaling, can be handled through the controller. And then if you have like a Samsung TV or a TV with the Xbox app on it, it can put it at like 800p output normally, or maybe it's just 1080p what the output would be normally. But with that controller, the updated controller, it can now enhance it. So it makes it, one, lower latency, two, a little bit better resolution over there, because you have something that would be aiding in the power of it. And I know they have like that controller that's coming out where it's going to come with like AR glasses or something like that. But I would say like 10 years from now, we won't need an actual physical console. The controller will be able to, house all the hardware that you would probably need, and having something that's like onboard DLSS on that controller, or in whatever the replacement for the console, if it winds up being like a Apple TV size puck type of thing, I can totally see that being the case. Like, if you were to tell somebody 5 years ago that a game is going to look like Hellblade then, or in 5 years, they probably wouldn't believe you. They'd be like, yeah, they're still going to have that dead eye look, and the facial expressions will probably be and then the like dirt or paint on the face will be like, oh, you could tell that was like painted on kind of thing. No, the technical or the visual jump that we've had in the last 5 years, or even in the last 10 years, I can just imagine another 5 to 10 years what that's going to be. And if they have that, if they're already working on that tech, give it another 2 to 4 years, and when we first see it, you probably will have something that can run at 1080p or be 1080p visuals that will be upscaled to look like it was native 4K all along, and not take the performance hit. I totally see that being something that's either next gen or possibly streaming through the current gen, 2 or 3 years into next gen. For those that maybe don't want to, upgrade right away, maybe the streaming option, provided you have decent internet and so forth, they'll be able to do that as well. So I'm hoping that holds true. And I mean, the 5090, when it comes out, will probably be able to do something similar as well. So we'll see how that goes later this year.
That 5090, bro. Like, get out of here. All the diminishing returns. We just keep getting more. And of course, every time the new 90 series card comes out, it's like 60% more performant. How are you clawing so much performance from that same stone? I don't know, man. I think there's something to
just keep on making it bigger. Eventually, the video card is going to be the tower, the size of the tower.
Yes. You're going to need like two little pillars to keep it up, because like computer cases started coming out with pillars to like keep it from tilting and cracking your bus. Like, just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's so much so that on mine, I had to put mine, I put mine straight up, which looks nice, but then it doesn't topple over because it's just way heavy. Like, it's way heavy, It's just ridiculous, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. I think that at least in the PC space, and a lot of console players sometimes accuse PC folks of this. It seems that they don't understand that even in the PC space, there's diminishing returns. I don't think that we will see ever a full 4090 or 4080 or whatever being used to its fullest capability until years down the line. I we just spend all day buying hardware to brute force, bad customization options and bad optimization and really, really difficult complex CPU calls that you can't shake. Dragon's Dogma 2 being a prime example. You know what I mean? Like, I secretly want to gather all of the NPCs and keep them in the city, and then bring all the apples there too and see what happens. Like, I want to see like a 4090 capable machine run at 5 frames per second. It should be crazy. I don't know, man. Roshan Eppinger asks a very interesting question. He says, Isn't that what the ML chip was in the series supposed to do? What was supposed to do that do as well? Like the devil's in the details, right? I've asked that question. The OG Xbox One had ML chips. It lay dormant. No one used it, right? So why do we think that it's going to change now? What do you think?
See, that's a good question. Like I would hope with Microsoft at least having all of these studios under their umbrella now between, ABK, Xbox Studios, and Bethesda, I would hope that they would, at least for the next generation, say, okay, we're going to at least pick one major pillar title or franchise, and this is going to be a focus. You're going to, incorporate these techniques into the game to kind of help offload some of the workload of the processors and stuff. But the third parties are going to be the ones that's the question. And I think until a part becomes mainstream across, let's say the Nintendo platform and PlayStation platform, it's hard to say. But I think given that they have, was it like 40 studios, or maybe it's like 30 something studios and 40 plus teams type of deal.
They gotta start in the whip somewhere, right? Getting them to use hardware somehow. Like, come on, guys. I think I agree with you. I think I do. It's and I think that's why I've been hearing folks complaining a bit as of late about this generation. I feel like while I get it, right? I personally get it. I understand that you want to push the envelope, and in order to do so, you have to push the envelope. And what will that do? That will make sure that the last gen or the current gen starts to buckle, right? It buckles under the weight. The best analogy I've given is I think is that basically all your resources are a cup, and you use them how you choose to use them, right? You go halfway in, and then you can use the other half as resources to get you 60 frames. Right? But if you do that, you're only using half the resources. Do you want that, or do you want Hellblade? Because you can't get them both, right? Right? And if you ever want Hellblade visuals and Skyrim gameplay, you got to start walking now to get to that eventuality, right? But I will say, because of all the marketing and the hype and all that, I kind of do understand why my console brethren are kind of upset, right? Although I say you should not expect IMAX footage from a TCL TV, I still understand if TCL keeps going, come and watch us IMAX footage, and then it's not there. I get that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so while I'm kind of like, when I say hashtag get a PC, I mean understand a PC. Get it. Yeah. Right? Once you get it, then you can make an informed decision as to whether you want one or you're okay dealing with the concessions, right? But it is fair to say that a lot of these folks have been kind of bamboozled with the marketing, and as such, they are now a little bit salty about it. I can't blame them. You know what I mean? Well, have you been hearing any of those conversations? Are people in your mentions upset?
Yeah, and a lot of it, and I'm not going to throw Aaron under the bus, but a lot of it had to do with like some of the quotes that he's made. Yeah. But then they don't have that mandate on things as a company for the devs, which sometimes could be a good thing, sometimes could be a bad thing. I think going into next generation and whatever they put in for the next generation's hardware, I think the mandate should be, okay, we, especially now, if they have a rough idea of what they're going to have, get these studios on board with using whatever tool set they need to use to build these games from the ground up on that hardware. But then the drawback is, does that mean that the game skips completely the series consoles, or is that something where the series consoles would have to stream it through, So it's a tough balance, but marketing is going to always try to get you to buy the product. That is their job, 100%. Sometimes it's inflated a bit, but then that's going to be the case across like all the platforms. Like, I know a lot of people point at, Aaron at Xbox, but it's like Jim Ryan said he believed in generations, and it took a while for them to actually stop doing cross-gen games. So any of these companies are at least guilty of not delivering, at least up front, not delivering on the promises that are either on the box or that were in commercials. But if you look back in the history of consoles, it's always like those last couple of years of that generation is when stuff starts to kind of push the envelope.
Yeah.
Like if
Yes.
you look at Grand Theft Auto 5 when it released on, PS3 and 360, that
Mm.
game, at least if you had the eyes just from that time period, that game was like the equivalent of a Hellblade in comparison to other games on those platforms back then. It was like you were seeing visuals that just you couldn't believe were capable on those consoles. But then when it came to the following generation and they redid it, it's like, oh well, yeah, that looks like Vaseline was on the screen in comparison. This looks so much better, and I can do first
Yeah.
person or third person. And then once again, they sold us another iteration for these consoles, and it turned up a few more of the details and shininess here and there. But
which is what they seem to get with you all the time, right? The shininess. Now all of a sudden they got you again. Oh, next gen, But to your point, was it Digital Foundry I watched? I think it was Digital Foundry I watched, and they did a great comparison of Forza Horizon, which I know you hold near and dear to your heart. Yeah. Forza Horizon on the 360 gen. How many Forza Horizons were released in 360? Do you recall? At least two.
There was two. The first one, which released solely on the 360, but it's back compat, and then Horizon 2 was a dual release. They did a 360 version and an Xbox One version, and they look totally different. I mean,
this is my point.
There's some similarities, but it was like they did. I forget who made it for the 360, but Playground Games did the one for the Xbox One, and that's what made me actually buy an Xbox.
Miles different, right? Miles different. Like, yes. I think I saw a video where they were literally doing like side by side comparisons. And of course, because this is a game that has the same tracks, same cars over the generations, you can do like for like on the same track, in the same car, identical, and the difference is preschool to university. It's just like, wow, what a and it's all in the same console generation, right? So it makes that's why I feel like let them experiment, right? Like today you see this, you may call it a walking sim, you may call it 8 hours or whatever. I appreciate 8 hours. I need a beginning, a middle, and an end so I can move on with my life, But those who want the 20, 30 hour experiences can probably get that as well. You just give it some time, right? Like, I don't know, man. I think while I can sympathize with those who feel like they were let down by the generation because it was a lot of multiplats, a lot of cross-generational games, a lot of shadiness when they last minute say, well, this is only a next gen game when you just discontinued the last gen 5 minutes ago. That's not a next gen game, right? But I do feel like ultimately we will look past when this generation is long gone, and this will be the start of something, right? This is the start of when we started seeing the next level, the next plateau that people needed to hit. You know what I mean? And I feel like while we're in it right now, it might be a little we might be in the fog of war, as it were, and we just don't see the forest for the trees right now because all you want is your 60 frames, right? I've asked folks before, what would you rather, right? And I'll ask the chat, like, please give me your opinion. I won't put a poll out. Just let's see some answers. What is your opinion? Do you want a mandate of 60 frames a second, which means sacrificing the next level? Right? Then you get 60 frames all the time. But I say then you're getting Horizon Forbidden West. Beautiful game, regurgitation. And by the way, this is not me calling shade on Horizon Forbidden West. I bet I've played more hours of that game than most people in this chat. I have 300 plus hours in that game. I love that game. I love that game. And that game takes 40, 50 hours to finish. I have 300 hours in that game. And my daughter and I walk around just like finding the biggest, baddest monsters to take down. That's all we did. I love that game. But I recognize that the game is basically a last gen game with the most amazing visuals out there, but it's still a last gen game, right? Is that what you want? Or do you want them to push the envelope and potentially get you a Hellblade game, which then you got to deal with 30 frames. You know what I mean? In the short term, you got to deal with 30 frames.
It's definitely a tough call. Like for me, I'm fine with it only because there are the options. Like push come to shove, I expect that we'll be able to see some, decent PCs out there do the 60.
Yep.
But for those that don't necessarily have that option, it would be nice if they go back, much like they did with the first one, and eventually do like a 60 frames mode. Like, because the first one was 30 when it released. Then when it came over to Xbox, they had like a 4K resolution and texture pack update, and then I think they did the 60 frames update either shortly before or shortly after the series consoles came out. So I could totally see towards maybe let's say the mid or later part of this generation, them possibly offering a 60 frames mode on like the Series X. Maybe it's only 1080p or dynamic up to 1080, and you get the 60 frames. It may not look quite movie like, but for those that want that performance, they'll be able to get it. It's just that it just won't have as much graphical detail. But I think they could focus on that stuff afterwards. I think the 30 is the vision that they wanted to show. Like it looks like they turned up more of the bells and whistles for the visuals than anything. Like they wanted you to kind of almost feel like you were in the moment or in that movie or in that experience, to the point where it's like you look over and you see like the little strands of hair or the threads on the clothing, to the point where it's like, this is real. This isn't, so these aren't pixels. These are real strands on a screen kind of thing. But I'd rather have that them push that next generation stuff. And then as time goes on, because we got to remember, Coalition are like the wizards when it comes to Unreal. So, I mean, they even help Epic with their own engine. So I would expect that let them be the next one to come forward out of the Xbox studios and show what they can do with Unreal. And then we might be able to see, or maybe they'll be able to show others how to do 60 frames and what it takes. And then maybe Undead Labs will be the next one where it's like, oh, remember that CGI trailer? The actual gameplay looks better than the CGI does.
I mean, let's be clear. That CGI trailer, the gameplay of Hellblade looks better.
Yeah.
It does. By like fact, it just looks better. So they've kind of achieved it right now. You know what I mean? Now, we don't know how what the sacrificing gameplay or how much sacrificing gameplay there is to get that Hellblade effect, because obviously Hellblade was never really the most hugely systems heavy game, right? A couple puzzles, visual puzzles, and one-on-one fights, and very moody and very scary and horrific. For a quick aside, let's talk about that for a moment. A lot of people, I've heard a lot of talk about, oh, this is going to be next gen. It's going to be, it's going to win awards. I kind of get the sense that Hellblade won't be for everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a game that's important and it's powerful. And you want to play it, but after you're done, you probably don't want to play it again because you're scared. Your heart's pounding. It's not that fun. Ooh, let's do it again kind of experience. Yeah, I have a feeling people might be in for. If you played one, you know what I'm talking about. But I think some people might be in for a little bit of a not a rude awakening, but you might be a little surprised. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it will, kind of, I wouldn't say terrify some people, but it is going to, make some people possibly uncomfortable to the point where they might just put it down and not come back to it. I know some people have done that with one. We always recommend, play it with headphones, but not everybody can deal with voices around their head. Like the spatial audio on this game, or on the first one, and they've turned that up a notch on this for 2, is I would say almost second to none. Like just short of hearing like bullets whiz bang past your ears and all that stuff. Like having those voices sound like they're either walking around you or right behind you, and it's like telling you that, oh, somebody's behind you or sneaking up, and it's like you can tell where the voice is coming from, or that it's overwhelming you to kind of be in the emotion of the character. I think all of that is going to affect some people in a way where they might not be able to finish it. Me, I'm all for trying to get this one finished. Like I put down the game on my PlayStation to try to get the achievements on Xbox, and then I forget what game came out that made me set that down. But like I said, I think early on, I'm like 50% through on Xbox. They have to start a new playthrough on PC because the save didn't carry over for whatever reason. It actually counts as 2 separate Hellblade games. And then
Mm-hmm.
my PS4 game that I can play on my PS5 is like I think 80% through. Like I'm like near the last probably a couple of boards where I only have to find a handful more of the rune stones and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. I still think it'll get nominated. And
Because a lot of artsy fartsy people like it, right?
yeah. I think the
Yeah.
coolest thing is, and yeah, there were some news outlets that were focused on the 30 frames or the fact that one of the heads of the studio is now left and stuff like that. But a
He
majority
left
of
a year
them,
ago, people, and he is
yeah,
living his best life. Holy crap! Check that man's spotlight, Instagram feed.
Instagram,
You
yeah.
will wish you were him. I'm just saying. Continue. Oh,
So, but yeah, I think a majority of the news outlets were focused on how the game looks, how it feels, and the emotion that it brought through to them as far as the excitement for it, and
yeah.
the gripping story itself. So I expect it to get a nomination. Now, if it wins, that would be phenomenal. Um, I I I do wonder if this is going to be the quote unquote console seller, but I think it'll have enough buzz around it that will make people take notice. So whether that means more Xbox subscriptions or more Xbox consoles sold, I think it'll translate into one of those two, or maybe a bit of both for Xbox as a whole. But yeah, I think this one is probably going to be in the at least get the nod for the nomination. Fingers
I
crossed
hope so.
if it wins.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it just as an achievement in visuals alone, it deserves to get some of that respect. I do hope so. But yeah, I guess I'm Mr. Temper Your Expectations guy today because
Mhm.
it's not your power fantasy. It's not your,
Yeah,
God of War where you're just ripping people apart and you're doing all this fun, crazy power fantasy stuff. This is an intense, like it's like a movie that you finish watching and go, "Oh, that was great. That was powerful. I'm never watching that again." Right? It makes you feel icky.
yeah,
So yeah, I hope it gets some credit for and some respect for what it's trying to achieve. But we'll have to temper our expectations and see what's what. And to my console brethren, Call of Duty is still coming. It'll probably run at 120 frames on Series S still. You know what I mean? So I don't think folks have too much worrying to do. It will be all right. You guys will be all right. You know what I'm saying? But okay, I think we're close to the end of this one. And on this show, before we end, we usually like to give some tips. We usually like to, get you on your way. If you just bought an ROG Ally, if you just bought a Legion Go, or you got another handheld, that's something that's interesting to you. Maybe we'll help you start your library. On that note, I'm sharing on my screen Epic Game Store. Yes, I know, Epic Game Store. Not a lot of people like the Epic Game Store. Oh, it's another launcher. They have literally the Outer Worlds, the Spacer's Choice Edition, full-fledged
yeah.
Spacer's Choice Edition, for free until April, right? Shut your mouth and go download that thing because that's $60 still to this day, and you can get that thing for free. Now, Thief is older. I used to play Thief on my on the Xbox One. I think it was the Xbox One because Thief is a remake of the original Thief. But even that, if you're big into sneaking, sneaky games where it's all about avoiding detection, that's also an interesting experience. And the best part about it is free 99. What are you doing? Go download that thing. Right? So there's that. There's also the Amazon Game Store. Now, obviously, you have to be an Amazon subscriber in that one. But even there, a lot of people are Amazon subscribers and they don't know it. And every month, as you can see, it says collected. I'm no fool, sir. I will collect it if you ask me to. If you give it to me, I will take it. Pause. Anyway, here you get a lot of interesting games. Also, for those who hear about Luna all the time, just by virtue of being a Amazon subscriber, you get to try it out. And every month they switch out these games. Sometimes it's a great game, other times it's like, I'm not a fan. But here you can come and try it. You just hit the button and you're trying it out, and it's absolutely free. So I recommend people go check it out. Right? I think it's a good idea. You just started on your Steam Deck. You just started on a small device. You want to start growing your library. This can quickly get you there, and you're spending very minimal amounts of cash. So last thing, which I will hit the button on, that right there is a code for Bloodstained. Ritual of the Night. It is a cool indie game, been out for a while, but it's like I have so many codes for games that I either have doubles of, or I've always thought, hey, I'll give that away someplace. And there it is. It's in the chat. If you happen to get your hands on it, let me know you got it. I appreciate y'all for being here. I think it's real cool that you guys spend your time with us. And also, join our Discord, because if you join our Discord and or you're a member on this channel and partake in the member chat, guess what? I'll be dropping a lot of, I call it the spring cleaning sale. I'll be dropping a lot of old codes that have been in my library forever. I'll be just dropping them in there. And if you happen to be wanting to build your library, you get your hands on them, right? We appreciate you for being here. We appreciate you for being in the chat. Salute to y'all. I think it's great that we can all play games together. What do you think, Mr. Fuzzy Belvedere? What are some indie interesting games that you have been playing recently before we get out of here?
Oh, as far as like one that I really Vampire Survivor, I'm still playing that, and I've transferred my save from Xbox to Steam because I got it in both places.
Yeah. So absolutely.
I've been so I don't have to do a Game Pass thing on my Steam Deck. I now have it natively on the Steam Deck and figured out a way to copy the save over. But Eyes in the Dark is another one. A little bit of a Metrovania, but it's like where you have to light up the actual background to see some of the pathways and things like that. So definitely worth a shot trying that out. I'm trying to think of any other ones. I still need to finish the Case of Benedict Fox.
Yeah. Now, some people said that the original version of that game left a little bit to be desired. I hear there's a definitive edition that just recently came out that actually does a lot better than the first one did, and actually is performing quite well. It fills in the story. It's not as buggy and whatnot. Maybe worth a shot. You know what I mean? Like I'm actually thought of re-downloading that game myself. So there you go. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So last thing before we go, as I said, I get a lot of Discord codes, the discount codes. This is from Humble. A lot of them, pages and pages and pages of them. Most of them I have not actually ever gotten my hands on. Now, the ones that have been authorized have already been used, so you won't be able to find them. So those of you trying to slow down slow the footage down and take it, it's already gone. Sorry. But there's a lot, and this is just one of many that I have. I have a lot of them. So, AKA, join the Discord. I have a whole bunch from years and years and years past that I like to, help out, because Humble Bundle sends money to charity when you buy a game, and it grows the library. You want a cool indie you want to check out, you give it a shot. So, join our Discord and be a part of. Like, I'm gonna start throwing games in that thing, but. On the end of this, Mr. Fuzzy Belvedere, sir, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. I always appreciate listening to all your takes and speaking the tech, and you know what you're talking about. And I think we are in for a very interesting few years coming up. Even though there's some fun out there in the community, but people should just be cool and trust in the pleasant voices of Fuzzy Belvedere to guide you through. You'll be all right. You know what I'm saying? Tell the people where they can find you tonight and all the other places you can be found.
Oh, as always, just want to thank you, Kay Asante, for having me on here. This was awesome. Just guesting in, best of wishes out to John and everything. Hope everything is swell for him and his family. But yeah, I recommend everybody, well, one, join the Discord, and if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, because I get a lot of my tech info from Kay Asante and John, and then also on the Gamer Circle on the weekends. It's always my Saturday morning deal to listen to as well. But
awesome.
For those that want to hear my rambles and rants, just follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Fuzzy_Belvedere. If you don't mind, catch me in about an hour on Fun Speculations channel for FSP, 10 o'clock Eastern time tonight. And then Friday morning, 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. for Breakfast with Boom with Mr. Boomstick on Double Barrel Gaming. And then later that evening, Xbox Ultimate at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fun Speculations channel. Shop Podcast on Saturdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on PTK Blam's channel. And then Sunday, a new show with 3-Bit called Pixelated Echoes. Although we missed this past Sunday, we will have an announcement on Twitter as far as for a possible Wednesday show, like midweek this week or some point on Wednesday. But thanks to everybody in the chat for watching us and everything. And thank you, Kay Asante, for having me on. Greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir. And I will co-sign Pixelated Echoes. I had the pleasure of being on. Love the show. The pixel art's real cool. You know, I really enjoyed myself. Shout out to 3-Bit and you for putting on a great show. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. You know, we do this every Monday nights, myself and Mr. John Wolf. Today, Mr. John Wolf could not be here, but of course, Fuzzy was so kind enough to step in for us. Besides that, I too can be caught on Double Barrel Gaming's channel on Wednesdays with Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and all the friends, and we always come and have so much talk there. It's always great. And of course, Saturdays on 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which you might be seeing one of the aforementioned folks that Fuzzy was talking about, PTK Blam, on our channel this weekend. Still working it out, but he might be there. So come check us out. I always love talking to him. He always has great takes, like an unabashed console gamer. He loves that stuff, you know, and I love hearing what he has to say about all the moving and shaking in the industry. So come check us out this Saturday as well. But yeah, I think that's it, man. We had a good time. Look, kept it all nice and tight and no issues. See, this is what happens when you don't bloviate. You get to the point, concise. It's a beautiful thing. But all right, man. Thank you guys also for checking us out. And until next week, keep it gaming. Thank you, Fuzzy.
Thank you. Later.